Welcome back to another episode of Straight to the Point. Today, I am joined by someone that I've followed for quite a few years, actually, as weird as that sounds. And I was just talking to him off air about this. He was the winner of the last series of The Apprentice that I watched. I used to be a big fan of the show, and we'll probably get into the show a little bit throughout all of this. But I've followed his climb online journey very, very closely. We're in similar industries, running similar businesses, and he's been someone which I've seen as a bit of an inspiration really to everything that I've been doing inside of the marketing agency. But Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time. How are things, mate? How are things going?
Well, Chris, good to be with you, and thanks for having me. I like the name Straight to the Point. Reminds me of my business partner, and I'm sure we'll get into the Apprentice stuff. But no, listen, things are really, really good. Other than having to be up super early this morning for BBC stuff, business is good. Climb Online, which I've been in business with Alan Sugar for 8 years now, still going strong. It's enabled me to invest in loads of other businesses and entrepreneurs, and I'm excited to sort of chat to you about it all. And thank you for following me and the kind words as well.
No, I appreciate it. Honestly, like the journey that you've been on, following it as, like I say, closely. I have some I think it'll be some cool topics to go into today. But that stuff with the BBC, what's that all about? What are you doing with them?
Well, it's one of those things. It's a byproduct that's happened from The Apprentice. When you go on the show, you get a whole load of PR training, you get a whole load of sort of connections in the media space. And ever since the day I went on that show, I've been inundated with requests to just be a commentator on business magazines, business radio, business TV. And what I found is a direct connection with going on a show like I did this morning and leads coming into my agency. And the more I get myself out there, and what I've discovered is it doesn't have to be about marketing, pretty much just on any topic. If you're just out there being seen, being heard, and my name's Mark Wright, Climb Online, in the same sentence being out there, leads are coming through the door. So my job really as the CEO and the owner of my business is just to get out there as many times as possible. Today I've got radio, podcast with you. I've been doing some blog work as well. Our job, I think, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, is just to be getting the word out constantly about who we are, what we do, and what our business is.
I love that. It's something that, I remember watching an old Gary Vaynerchuk video like 4 years ago when I first started. And I remember it's like, just be visible, get yourself out there, just post content. And I don't agree with everything that Gary says. I respect him a lot for what he's done. But that bit of advice, to be fair, has stuck with me, and it has helped me like no end with that sort of thing. For the people that may not know who you are, Mark, like the non-Apprentice fans that might be out there and the non-digital marketing fans as well. Where did Climb Online start? Was that because I know some people when they go to the Apprentice, they make up a business idea to take to the boardroom when they have the interview section. Was Climb Online something that you already had before you went on the Apprentice, or was it something which you started because like almost I want to take this to Lord Sugar?
Well, I came over here to the UK in 2012 as a backpacker, and I was working in a massive digital marketing agency, 500 employees sort of style, and I was a cold caller selling Google Ads back when sort of Google Ads were the main and the big thing. And I really didn't like the company. I didn't like the ethics of what they were doing. So I put together a business plan for what I thought would be a really ethical, really good quality digital marketing agency. And I took the idea on the show. So the point where I went on The Apprentice, I'd never run a business. I'd never owned a business. I had nothing running in the background. And actually, if I was a VC or a PE company looking at me, I had no track record, I had no business, I had no turnover, I just had an idea. I'm a pretty bad bet on paper. But what I think Alan Sugar saw in me was incredible industry knowledge. I really knew my sector. I was young and I was incredibly hungry. And the best advice I can give anyone that's looking to invest in a person or a company is exactly that, the former. Always invest in the person, never the company or the idea, because at the end of the day, you can have two people in the same industry and one person's business be incredibly successful and the other not. And the only difference is the owner of that business. And I think what Alan Sugar saw in me was someone who, doesn't matter if it was in digital marketing, in property, in recruitment, I was going to be successful with my drive and determination. And I think he would have invested in any business plan I proposed. It just so happened to be Climb Online.
It's really interesting that you talk about that. It's almost, I sense like a lot of self-belief even back then when like you first started. I know, like for me, and I don't know if this was just me, it'd be interesting to get your thought on it, but I've always like felt something in me that was built for something like quite big. Like I've had this like gut feeling whenever I've been in a job, whenever I've worked in my corporate career, like I had this thing that wasn't where I was meant to be and I was built for something more. Like, were you similar to that? Did you always have that feeling that you wanted to start your own business and that you felt like you were gonna build something big?
I love that. And I think all entrepreneurs have that fire burning inside them where you're sitting in someone else's business, you're an employee and you hate it. You want to be working for yourself. You want to have your own employees. You want to see your vision come to life. And when I was a young boy, I used to go around telling people I was going to be a businessman and a millionaire. I just didn't know what a millionaire meant, and I just knew it meant a lot of money, and I didn't know in what business. But I always saw it for myself, and I knew I was going to win that TV show. I really believe in visualization and seeing things into reality and believing if you're going to succeed. If you want to be the best, you've got to believe you're the best. If you want to succeed, you've got to believe that you can succeed. And I know it sounds really cheesy and there's a whole load of hard work and other stuff that's got to go on around that. But if you cannot see it for yourself, no one else will be able to see it for you.
And if you're like somebody that almost doesn't have that clear of an image, because there are some people, right? I've met a few who, like, you ask them the question, like, have you always wanted to do this sort of thing? And they're kind of like, well, not really. However, I kind of like fell into it. For someone that doesn't have that clear picture, however, may have like the ability, do you know how you would go about finding that almost belief, that feel in business if you didn't have it? Like sometimes it's like trying loads of things. Sometimes it's going out there and having a real open mind to it. How would you approach it if you didn't? I know it's a bit of a weird question, but if you didn't have that like certainty in yourself, how would you find it?
Well, you've kind of answered the question already, because I believe it comes from two things. It's one, trying loads of things quickly and failing fast, because I didn't like any job I ever did until I found digital marketing. I either got fired because I sucked, I quit because I didn't like it, or it was grossly underpaid. And I thought there's got to be better things out there. Like, I'm dyslexic, and I'll give you an example. I was a waiter at a restaurant called Hog's Breath in Australia, and I would get to the till and I couldn't read my own writing from the orders I've just taken. And I was like, I really suck. But when I found digital marketing, I was really good. I enjoyed it, and it didn't feel like I was working. And you have that sort of like light bulb moment where you're like, okay, I think this is my thing. And I think if you haven't found that, you need to keep trying other things. Failing forward, failing quickly is really important, because it gets experience and it crafts skills. And I think it's a waste of life, because as far as I know, and not to get into a religious debate, we get one go around the wheel here. And life is too short to just be doing something you hate every single day. Because if you're doing something you hate, or you've just, as you said, fallen into it, I can't understand how you can be really successful in that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I never knew that marketing was going to be my thing. It was never on my radar when I was like 18, 19, 20. And it was just something that I remember just someone asking me randomly, like, how did you go about building? I was an Instagram following builder. That's what I did. Like, how did you build your Instagram following? I was like, well, I just did this, and this, and just kept going. And then I realized there was more to it. And it kind of just accidentally fell into, well, I can either teach people how to do it, or I can help support and do it for them. And that was how I kind of went into it. What I'm fascinated by is I've heard a lot of interviews that you've been on, and they've always spoken about the Apprentice and the journey and what it was like and all that sort of thing. And I love that. And I'm going to put the links to those in the description, because those stories have already been told. What I'd love to know, and you may have been asked this before, but I've just not heard it yet, is the moment you win that show and you get the investment into your business, what was like the first steps that you took to be able to get that business going?
Well, what I will say about financing a company, because I've done it both ways, through organic growth, as we said, and exponential growth, and through financing. When you get investment, it puts rocket fuel in an organization. But where you need to be careful, where you get particularly large sources of money. Now, 250,000 isn't a large source, but where you do get millions or tens of millions, you need to be careful, because it gives you a false sense of reality, a false sense of economy. And when you do start having to watch the pennies and build up organically, you really monitor the costs a lot more, because it's your money. As soon as someone else introduces capital, you stop watching the costs as much. But to answer your question about what the next steps were, is Lord Sugar and I sat down and we built out a proper business plan and a runway for what we thought the business would be. The cash injection came in and we just literally started the next week on the Monday. But what had happened is the final episode had just aired on the show, and my profile was absolutely peaking. Like, I had 150,000 plus followers on social media, out of nowhere. And it was literally like, I got pretty much 95% of that following in one day on the final episode day. So I went from sort of no followers on social media to hundreds of thousands in 24 hours. And the business, we set up the business, and like, no matter what landing page we put live, what website, the server would crash. We could not get a server that could handle the visit traffic. And like, people are tweeting, writing blogs online, like, this guy's meant to be a digital expert. He can't even get his own landing page up. And like, we had like loads of people trying to just figure this stuff out, but we could not get it done because the attention was just so significant. So there were some real challenges there. But the first thing I did was like try to shut out all of the noise. And Lord Sugar was really good at doing that. He moved me out locally to him. There was sort of a lot of time that wasn't spent on social media, just hidden away. And we were just like sort of planning out the business. He was very involved from day one, for particularly the first year to 18 months of the business. And I started hiring staff. My early days were spent like most businesses start, getting an office, getting some employees, getting some customers on board. And there was some challenges there as well, because before I started, when I was selling digital marketing, no one wanted to meet me. No one wanted to buy what I had. All of a sudden, everyone wanted to meet me. But it was very hard to tell who was a potential customer and who just wanted to meet the Apprentice winner. And so I've spent a lot of time going to meetings or having calls or discussions with people who were actually never going to sign up to my business. They just wanted a selfie and to talk to me about the Apprentice and stuff like that. So I started to have to be a lot more ruthless with my time and who I spent my time with, where meetings I went to and stuff like that. And the same thing happened with employees as well. We got a lot of employees who just wanted to work for me and Alan Sugar, but they were not really committed to the organization. So whilst the opportunity I've had has been life-changing, and I wouldn't change it from the world, there are some really weird elements to it that I wasn't expecting.
Gotcha. And when you were going through that period, were there specific? So what I see a lot of digital marketing agencies do is they start off and they go really wide. So they go, right, we're going to do SEO, we're going to do TikTok, we're going to do Instagram, and they do the whole lot. Now, I don't think that's a problem. However, like, it wasn't the way that I did it. What was your approach with Climb Online? What was like the service offering that you started with, or did you start with everything and kind of filter through?
Well, I'd love to say I nailed it. And I'm a master of business, which I might think in my own head. I was 23. And my initial plan was for a very similar business to GoDaddy, whereby you would go to a website called Climb Online and you would buy a domain, and there would be a website builder and you could do your own SEO and PPC all in this one function. And it was actually Claude Littner that said to me, that won't work. He's like, that's too many services. He's like, your knowledge is exceptional. If you pick one or two services, this will be a great business. He's like, so if you've got 5, scrap 3, keep 2. And I decided, right, get rid of all of that stuff. The easiest is to start with SEO and PPC. and just start the business called Climb Online doing those two services. It was the best advice I ever got early on, because I think by becoming all things to all men, you quickly become nothing. And I think that the best advice was just for any company starting out, particularly on a shoestring budget, is the more limited you can keep your offering, the more you can become an expert at it, the lower you can keep your costs, and it gives you the highest chance of surviving the first 18 months in business, which is the biggest area for failure.
And again, it's something that I made the mistake of at the beginning as well. So I remember, like, I had my Instagram agency, and then suddenly someone asked me, "Oh, would you mind having a look at Facebook? Would you mind me having a look at LinkedIn? Would you mind doing me some email copy and going down that route?" And like, at the point of startup, and I know what people go through, because it's like you're crying out for revenue. You take the opportunity when it's there, and what ends up happening is you set yourself back almost further, rather than going, "Do you know what? No, I'm going to stay tunnel visual to what I'm doing, and then scale out." So as that business grew, what was year one like for Climb Online? Like, where did you? Because I always like these stories where you go from 0 to 100, 0 to 1,000,000. Like, what was the journey that you went on for that first year?
Oh, it was crazy. So we went from 0 to 1.7 million turnover in 1 year. So it was crazy. It was absolutely like just shot in the arm. And there was sales coming in, there was staff coming in, there was money coming in. It was all just sort of like happening. I was working 7 days a week, 20-hour days, to the point that it was just sickening how hard we were working, just because you realize when you start a business, an order would come in, for example. Right, bang, we've got an order, we've got a new customer. Okay, let's send them a contract. They don't exist. We need to create contract. They've asked for our terms and conditions. We don't have those. Have to make terms and conditions. Oh, where's the privacy policy? We have to make that. Oh, where's our website? We have to make that. Like, when you start a business, you have to make everything. And that was just that first year plus was very, very difficult. And it was very invested. But the growth was 1 year, 0 to 1.7 million. Then we flew up to sort of 3 million, flew to 4 million. I then stagnated at 4 million. And then I've just flown up past the 10. And what I find is the business just jumps up at these certain points. And then I hit a barrier where the team and infrastructure I have is almost, the business has outgrown the players. It's almost like a football team going up stages in different leagues. The players can no longer play in that league. So you need to sort of sign some new players, trade some old ones. Business is absolutely no different. And I have stagnated the growth a couple of times through bad decision making on my end, through no fault of my own, economic turns in the industry, whatever. But generally speaking, it has been an upward trajectory, never as fast as what I would want. But if I was satisfied, okay, let me put it this way. If you're an entrepreneur and you're satisfied, you're not an entrepreneur.
Totally relate to that
one. So yeah, we're doing very, very, very well. But I compare myself to Elon Musk. I compare myself to Apple and all of these, which people might think is stupid. But if I don't want to be the best and the greatest and the biggest, I don't see any point of getting out of bed tomorrow, because I do it to be the best at what I do every day.
I totally agree. And I think one of the things that you hit upon really nicely there was the different growth curves that businesses go through. And like, to give you the context, like, a lot of the people that listen to this are going probably through that 0 to 500,000 to like £1 million a year. That tends to be the journey. And what I'm fascinated to know, like with your business in the way, because we have a lot of digital marketing agency owners that listen to this as well, is as you were going through, like, average sale price is something that always gets spoken about. And to be able to get to like 100 grand, you can sell your £1,500 a month to £3,000 a month retainers or products. To be able to go through that £1 million mark, it's a step up. And a lot of people struggle with that mindset around charging X amount of money to certain businesses. And I know you've worked with some amazing brands out there. To be able to get to that million mark, what was like the order values that you were kind of dealing with to be able to get to that? Were you working with thousands of customers? Were you working with 10, 20, 30? How was like the makeup of that first £1 million worth of revenue?
Well, it's a really good question, and I've gone on a sort of deep journey with this. My first customer, as Climb Online, their management fee, their fee was £150 a month. So it was £150 a month. And my first year to get to that 1.9 million, it was just about 1,000 customers. It was like high hundreds of customers. So it was low budget, high volume, stack them up, bring them in. I was just bringing them in. And a lot of them were wrong for the business. They weren't ready for digital marketing because they didn't have budget. They didn't have websites that were capable of performing well. But as you really said, refinedly at the start, is you're hungry for revenue. You want to be success. You want your business to succeed. And I was going on this journey of trying to educate people about the marketing process and how much they need to spend. And my theory was get them in, educate them, grow them, all of that sort of stuff. I've changed my thought process completely, and a man that doesn't change his mind doesn't change anything. I've really gone on a journey with this. Now I have less customers than ever. Now I turn away 50% of the companies or people that come to me to work with me. But my average budget now is in the tens of thousands per month. I now am in the millions of turnover a month. So I'm in a completely different place. And what I've realized is to make big money, to have sustainable and successful customers, they have to spend more. That brings a better type of customer because they understand the marketing process. 2, they've got budget, and a company that comes to you as your last resort and says, oh, I really need this to work on my business is under. Do not take that money. No. Because I've been on that journey more than anyone who's listening to this, and I've never made it work.
Listen, it's that desperation, isn't it? And I mean, you feel for clients, don't you? Because this is a really interesting time, right? And over the last 2 years, there has been that shift, and I know you've seen that growth curve over the last 2 years in your business, right? We've seen something similar with COVID coming, like the horrible word that it is. However, it just spiked the digital space. It went absolutely ballistic. Now, the thing that I think is really important for people to hear is that it's one thing making like £10,000 1 month. It's another thing than having another £50,000 1 month. To sustainably hit between £100,000 a month and £200,000 a month, which is what you've done for the last God knows how many years now, that it's sustainable. There's certain things that you must have in place to be able to keep that going. What would you say are the most important things as you grow through that kind of initial startup phase when you are growing?
Well, I have an amazing founding team around me. Some of my top management, my top and middle management have been the same people for the last 8 years. So whilst we might lose employees off the periphery, the normal employees in the progression of their careers come and go. The people in my inner circle have been the same people for 8 years, and they all have different specialties. So I'm surrounded by really good, really knowledgeable people. I have a great sort of power team around me, and that stability has given the business stability. And I think a business that's changing the management structure too frequently in terms of personnel and systems, they also start fluctuating in numbers because new people come in with new ideas, make changes, and the business feels the shift in that. The other thing is I was one of the very only marketing agencies of my time to not niche down in an industry. I went wide across multiple sectors and different budget sizes. And what that gave me was insurances that, for example, a COVID comes along and everything in travel churns, I still have a business.
Yeah, really good point.
So I think I made some good decisions, really good decisions around the people in my team, the types of customers we work with in different industries countries and deal size, and it's just made my P&L. Even though if you were to look in at a microscopic level, each month it's like this. What you see at Companies House is that, and it's just because good infrastructure has been put in place.
And is that something which you believe was there right at the beginning when you first started? Or is that something that, like 2 years in, you went, right, immediate focus on foundation because we need to grow? Like what? Because it's really difficult. I always find, and I found this really tough. I've got a great business partner, very much more successful than I'll ever be in my life, like insane. And he's been grinding me like non-stop. Foundations, team, process, structure from day one. And as much as I hated it, because it was just completely against my whole way of doing things, it set us up to scale. Don't get me wrong, like we make mistakes all the time. There's always process gaps with what we're doing. But I was forced to do it, and I was lucky enough to have someone that did that. Was that something that you had from the beginning? Or is that something which you've kind of gone, right, year one, really put effort in, year three, really put effort in? What was the journey that you went on with building infrastructure and team?
Like you, I think it's painful, all of this stuff. I just want to go out, do deals, make money, have a good time in the process. But like I was saying, I've been lucky to have good people around me who understand that you can't be successful without process and systems. And from day one, I've had good people which are focused on CRM implementation, process and tools, employment structure, HR structure, all of these things which I frankly can't give a toss about. so I can then be my entrepreneurial self. And the way we describe it and my management describe it is I come in with my disruptive thing and I come out with 150 ideas a day. And I come into a room, I'll leave someone crying, someone smiling, and 50 ideas on the table. And their job is to come in and sweep up after me, stop the person crying, start implementing the ideas. And they're kind of there to support me. And that enables me as an entrepreneur to be successful. But they allow me, and I wouldn't be where I am without my team, because I would be in a horrendous mess without that infrastructure behind me. So I've identified well, I think, what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I've employed people to look after my weaknesses, and it allows me just to do stuff like what I'm doing with you, which I'm good at and enjoy all day. And that was something I've done from really early on.
Really cool. And again, this would be really cool to go into, actually, because people always talk about this stuff online. I've seen this on something like infrastructure, team, build process. The power team bit, I hate that clip, but it's right. The power team part. Did you have like these people come to you and approach you, or did you go out and find them? What was the way that the people that you've got surrounded with you got involved?
50-50 is probably the answer. And some of my top executives that work for me now, I've met in the street. So I have a rule that if I meet someone in a restaurant, in a bar, anywhere in life, see online, and they're doing an exceptional job, my job is now to get them to work for me. So one of my managers, I met in the car park at Waitrose. He was working at Waitrose, really liked him, got him in. Another girl was a towel folder at Fitness First, where I trained, and I noticed she remembered everyone's name on her way in. And there is, in my organization, 50 stories like that, where someone was somewhere in the street and I saw them doing something and they now work for me. And I put them through different challenges, like interviewing them on Christmas Day, or stuff like really weird stuff like that, making them move in 3 days to see their commitment, asking them to give me a coffee and not giving them the right amount of money to see what they will do. Little things like this, and then it develops top executives. And some people have approached me and begged to work with us. We've approached some people and begged them to work for us. It's all about the right person fitting what you need as the entrepreneur to offset your skills and what the business needs at that time.
It's really, like I say, really, really like cool in terms of how you do it. And the one thing that you mentioned was like your ability to meet these sorts of people in certain scenarios. So like the lady at the gym who remembered everyone's name, like you're looking for it. It's like, it's almost like a spider sense going on when you see these sorts of things. And I think you've got to have like an open mind to be able to spot the people that are good at building those relationships, right? And the relationships part, this is kind of like selfish for me to ask this, right? But one of the things that I struggle with, you are like working like 10, 15, sometimes like overnight with these sorts of things. People talk about like work-life balance, don't they? And maintaining relationships. Building those relationships with like friends and family, I've found really difficult to balance with work, with everything else that's going on. Like I'm very much like you, I wake up, focus on what I'm doing because I love it. Like I'm 24/7 non-stop. And people always say like it's unhealthy. I mean, I just don't feel like that. I'm a bit weird where it's just like non-stop. Like, how have you, one, how do you deal like with relationships and stuff whilst also being so involved with such a big company? Because you've got a company that's 5 or 6 times the size of mine. Like, how do you deal with it when you get to that level? And is it something which you struggled with at the beginning and you've got better at, or have you always been quite good at maintaining like really, really healthy relationships with people away from business?
No, is the answer. And yeah, this is extremely challenging, and I don't know that anyone's got the right answer for them for you. The answer lies within what is important to you and what's going to make you feel satisfied. Being successful to me, and success is different for everyone. For some people, success is having a six-pack. For other people, success is being the best mum in the world. The other people's success is being the best grandparent in the world. For me, success to me is business. And that makes me feel successful and that makes me feel happy. And selfishly, I do what makes me happy and feel successful. Now, when people understand how much I work and how much I think about work and the times and hours and stuff I commit, they think, well, that's not healthy. Well, it's not healthy for you because your definition of success and goals are different to mine. I'm doing what makes sense to me. And I've met a very wealthy man one day, and he said, if you want to be wealthy, you have to say goodbye to your friends and family for 3 years. If you say goodbye to them for 3 years and come back, work your socks off for 3 years and come back, you'll be a millionaire. I'll never forget when he told me that. I did it. It didn't even take me 3 years. It probably took me 2 years, a year and a half from that point to be a millionaire that he told me that. But it was really powerful advice. You can't get anything without sacrifice, and you've just got to decide what you're prepared to sacrifice. I've lost a lot of friends along the way, and I can live with that. I've lost a lot of people in my life along the way, and I can live with that. And it's all about what are you prepared to sacrifice for what makes you happy and feeling successful. And if you're the true people who love you and care for you, like my family and my partner and everyone in my life, the ones that are still here are the ones that were important in the first place.
Oh, I love that. And again, the reason I ask it is, one, obviously for me, two, is because I get a few messages quite often around that topic. It's like people feel, and I used to get this a lot. I used to feel guilty that I didn't want to come away from work, if that makes sense. Like I used to feel when I'm on holiday, for instance, I love going down to the pier with my laptop, with my coffee, and sitting out in a nice environment, thinking about things. Yes, I then like to put the laptop away for a couple of hours, but after that, like I want to get, and I used to really make myself feel guilty. I used to make myself miserable. And I think like I've learned over the last, probably only over the last year, recent, that it's okay, like to love what you do and to throw yourself into it. So like I said, it's nice to know that I'm not.
Well, I think one other point is when people come into your life or people who are important in your life, is to be honest with them about what that relationship is going to be. And saying, you know, I was very clear with my partner, for example, when we started going out, work is very important to me. If this phone rings, I'm out the door, you know, I've got to go to Dubai in half an hour, I'm gone. And if that's going to be a problem, we're going to be a problem. And I think if you start by mis-selling it and saying, well, you know, I don't work as much as what they say, and, you know, I'll always be around it, and then you're not that person, that creates more issues. But if you have clear boundaries and expectations with the people in your life that I'm going to be around when I can be, and if I'm on my laptop, you've got to remember that if I'm by the pool having my latte on my laptop, if you were that, you may not be happy in that situation. You've got to remember that I'm happy in that situation. So if you want me to be happy, you've got to be happy for me in that situation. And just by having those conversations, I've been able to sort of sort a lot out.
Yeah, I think it's really valid. It's isn't like, I remember, I think it's Mo Gordat. I'm going to butcher his name, I think, but he talks about happiness, isn't he, all the time? And I think his definition of it was when you over exceed your expectations or you'll meet them, you're happy. If you ever dip below expectations, you're unhappy. And it's like, as long as you're like really open and honest with how you're feeling with your other half or with your family, as long as you set the expectations right, it tends to be okay. That's a really good way of putting it.
Definitely.
Another topic then, really common topic with entrepreneur, overwhelm. Have you ever experienced overwhelm? Something that you've had in the past? If so, like, can you describe that? Like, what was the scenario if you had, or if you haven't, what's the secret to not having it?
Well, I have it. I've had it a lot, and I still run on the verge of having that all the time. You know, the last couple of weeks have been insane. And I got to a point, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I started getting fainting episodes where I would just faint out of the blue. I would just be at my desk or I'd be stood somewhere and I'd just faint. And you would look at my diary, and from sort of 6:15 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, it would be full. And I was doing that for 6 days, but I would be doing it with eating terrible food, drinking wine, you know, living that terrible life. And my body and my sort of mental and physical health just hit a bit of a wall. And what I figured out was I'm going to be the richest person in the graveyard quite quickly here if I don't make some changes, because being successful is about consistency. And I can't do this for years and years and years. I'm struggling to do this for sort of 6 to 12 months. So I made some changes in my daily habits, bigger blocks of space between meetings, time to go out, go for a walk, grab some lunch, have a coffee, finishing a bit earlier, making sure I'm getting more sleep, little things like that. And what I've realized is I used to get guilty if I didn't work until exhaustion every day. And that's not healthy, by the way, but I would feel guilt. If I went to bed and didn't feel like I left it all on the field that day, I would have guilt. So I'd work to exhaustion each day, but then I was achieving less and less and less because my energy levels were so low. So I needed to do a bit of tinkering with my daily routine and habits to get to the place. It's pretty much perfect now, but it took me, I would say, 6-7 years to get it to a place where I could feel balance and satisfaction with what I was achieving.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And again, it's something which probably over the last year, as we've gone through that next bracket. Again, we're not a huge business, right? We're growing, and it's when you've got so many hats to wear, and I know a lot of people go through this stuff, right? Like, you've got recruitment, customer services, you've got management of contracts, you've got finance, you've got marketing, sales. You've got to wear everything. It becomes difficult to like almost prioritize and get everything done. It's actually really fascinating. Actually, what are your like priorities like day to day at the moment? Because I guarantee, like, you must have loads of people trying to pull you in different directions. Like, where do your priorities lie with your business growth at the moment?
Well, I speak to less people now than I ever speak to, because I've set up my business where I only report to a couple of people and they control the rest of the organization. So I have sort of 2 main meetings a week with my management in my business. My job is focused on the biggest levers in the business, the top customers that spend the most, top paid employees that mean the most to our organization. So I'm focused on anything that can impact or move the needle in the biggest way. There's no good me getting involved in a small query, because my salary and pay is far outweighs time versus money on that, and I have other people to do that. So my job is spent, how can we do better as an organization? How can we grow more? And where do I want to invest and grow next? Is that through M&A and other agencies? Is that buying and investing in other things? So my time is much better spent now in that, but I still get dragged into situations I shouldn't. And, you know, the worker bee and the founder in me wants to get involved, but I have to sometimes say, this is a disaster. I'm paying 3 other people to be in this meeting. I shouldn't be here as well. But that's taken me a lot of time to sort of get my head around as well. So it's things that move the needle.
Got you. That makes sense. Again, it's really fascinating for me to hear, because one of the things that I spend a lot of my time doing is, I guess, personal brand building, which helps the business brand grow, right? And spend lots of time on social and trying to work out how to get the most attention. I know you've kind of saw your personal brand almost got put on steroids at the beginning, didn't it? And you've kind of kept it going and going and going. In terms of really trying to generate almost leads for because I'm assuming your personal brand, right? The reason you build it is there's probably multiple reasons. I'm assuming one of them is to generate more inquiries for Climb Online, or is that slightly different now?
It was initially, probably up until about 2 years ago, my personal brand would drive a lot of inquiries for the business. Then we decided to change that angle, because if I ever want to sell the agency, if too many customers are joining because of the founder of the business, that founder can never sell that business and leave. And therefore, you're not building anything for sale, and therefore you might as well not have a business. Because is
that on your mind, an exit at some point, or is it what's like? Do you have a plan currently?
Well, we always start with the end in mind. Every business starts with the and should start with the end in mind. And I believe, whether I'm thinking about an exit or not, because I know I'll exit one day through one means or another. I love what I'm doing, by the way, and I love my business. But I believe the sign of a real entrepreneur is someone that can walk away from their business today and it run just as successfully, if not even more successfully. So my job over the last 2 years has been trying to make myself completely redundant in my own business. And that is so challenging. And if you can master that, I think you're the greatest entrepreneur of all.
I love it. So in terms of your personal brand now, then what's the point? What's the reason you do it all?
Well, I have been very fortuitous that through the success of Climb Online and my other companies, it's made me very financially well off in the sense that I now have available income to invest in other entrepreneurs and other businesses. I keep myself out there doing talks, podcasts, whatever, to be within the entrepreneurial community. So my last 2 investments in other businesses has come through podcasts, speaking on stage. And I want to attract people to me as a mentor for them or onto their board. And it allows me opportunities to create the next Climb Online.
I love it. Cool. Amazing stuff. I'm conscious of time, mate. So I have a question that I always ask at the end of this, and it's around advice. Really, like that's the biggest thing. And I made a shed load of mistakes. You won't know my story whatsoever, but I had a big gambling problem when I was younger. When I was 18, wow. 19 and 20. I racked up a load of debt for myself. And I always say, like, the biggest piece of advice I would give my 18-year-old self is not to live beyond your means trying to impress others. It's like the biggest piece of advice. If you go back, that would be it. If you were to go back to speak to your 18, 19-year-old self, what would those 3 biggest pieces of advice be?
Trust the process, and your gut instinct would be number 1. Trust the process and your gut instinct, because it generally is right.
Yeah.
2, the tougher you will get, the more successful you'll get. And 3, don't worry about the past or the future. Just work in today and in that present moment, because I'm a big overthinker, a big overanalyzer, and a big worrier. And literally 98% of the things that I've ever worried about have never happened. And I've spent so much time, organizing for those situations that have never happened. So I would give myself that advice, and I'd probably be 10 times more successful than I am today.
Really nice, mate. Really, really cool. I love that a lot. Now, one of the things that we've not spoken about yet, and I'm really excited by it because I've had a really, really good experience with this sort of thing in the past, but we're working together on Sarah Point and Ryan's retreat, aren't we?
Yes.
In September. And what are the reasons you've decided to, because you went last year, right? You went
yes.
to Sarah's retreat. What's the reason you decided to go in the first place? And now why are you coming back and doing it again?
Well, I'm not going to say reluctantly. I'm going to say I went with caution last year. I got approached by a friend of mine, Matt Saltis, and he knows Sarah, introduced her and said, you know, this chick's cool. She runs a business retreat in Ibiza. And I was really funny about it because I don't like listening to other business speakers generally, because I haven't got an off switch. If someone says some bullshit I disagree with, I will say it, and I end up getting in situations, and it's just best if I'm not involved. Anyway, long story short, it sounded cool. Get paid some dough to go out to Ibiza and talk business for a couple of days. How bad can it be? So I rolled the dice and went. Turns out, loved every second of it. I got on with Sarah like a house on fire. We have very similar ethics, points of view on business, opinions about business, and we just clicked from that first moment. I enjoyed speaking to the 20 business owners we had there and really getting into the detail because I'm passionate about business. And I believe business is like a sort of puzzle, like a Rubik's Cube. And if you just gave me 20 Rubik's Cubes like they did in Ibiza, I can just make it work for you. And I loved it. Yeah, there you go. I've got one here as well. I've got
See it fiddling all day.
So we went there, loved every second of it. And then I left and Sarah said, would you like to come back for a second year running? And I don't normally get invited back after one of my Scorching the Earth talks, but I've been invited back and you're going to be there this year. And I think what's exciting for us is, you know, in an hour in a podcast, you can't get much done. In an hour on stage, you can't get much done. In 4 or 5 days working with someone on their business, you can get a hell of a lot done. You can get a lot of those blockers out of the way. You can get a lot of systems in place. And I actually have talked to some people who were there last year that have gone from sort of 200-300 grand profit, which is a good business, to 800 to $1 million profit. That's a very good business. You're now exiting for about 10 million on that. So that's really gets my tail wagging, and that's why I'll be back this year. Why are you coming along?
The first time I had a lot of fun a couple of years. So my story with that retreat, right, is I was sitting on Instagram. I was just about to go and speak at an event in Wolverhampton, and I got this random message from this random guy that was Sarah's business partner at the time, and he messaged me just a random thing saying, "Hey Chris, do you fancy a free trip to Ibiza?" I was like, "Never spoken to you before in my life, mate. Who are you? What's the catch?" sort of thing. And he went, "Look, no catch. Just we need you to come out tomorrow if you're going to come." And I was going through a period in my life where I was like, I need to get away. Like I need to run away from a few things, basically. And I thought, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I ended up just flying out there, meeting. The first night was hilarious because I got out the cab and all I get is 2 people screaming Chris down the bottom of the road coming. I was like, Chris. I'm like, what on earth is going on? Like, it just never happened to me before in my life. And it was Sarah's coming in from a night out. And we ended up like going in the next day. We sat down. I really had no idea what the businesses were going to be like there. I had no idea what Sarah was going to be like. So I've never met her. And she's just a person that, and I'm sure you found that you just click with.
Yeah.
You just really are aligned with her because of the way that she does business. And when we drew out the plans, and I used to, when I was at that phase of doing like 100, 250 grand a year, I was trapped day to day, right? And I found it really, really difficult to get the time to go, right, next 12 months, what's the plan? How am I going to move this forward and double the size or triple it? And I found that when I was speaking to these business owners, not only was I mentoring and giving advice on the digital marketing, the personal branding stuff, it made me think. And there's something that's so powerful about getting away and just having time to think. And this is something which I always encourage. I was speaking to a couple of people that may be joining us on this. For those of you that aren't aware, there's a couple of spaces still left to come on this trip with us. And I was speaking to a few people and they're just caught in the busy trap, just non-stop head down focusing. They love what they do, but they never get the time away. So it's like, look, come away, come into a completely different country with people that have been there, done it, and got through the barriers that you're currently through, and experience what it's like being around people that are bloody doing it and living and breathing it. And there's something really powerful around that. So when Sarah then said, look, would you want to come back? Because I didn't do last year, which was when you were there, to come back. I was like, that was one of the best experiences I ever had. And I was the one that was mentoring. So like, I'm 100% going to be there just to experience what it's like being around people 24/7 in that villa, focusing in on like that next year and reviewing what I've done and planning ahead. So I'm so passionate about these sorts of retreats. Like, if you scroll back through my Instagram, if anyone scrolls back, there's photos of all the different ones that I've been on: Bali, Ibiza, and
Oh, wow, you've had a proper go now.
you just meet people like that you have relationships with forever, and that for me is like, forgive the cliche, but priceless. It just, like, my relationship with Sarah from the back of that event, like, she's helped me no end with stuff like that we've gone through, and same with Emma and the way that she helps with like mindset. And these people are there to support you, not just for that retreat, but for that whole period afterwards as well. And that for me is just something that you've just got to experience at least once in your life if you've not done it before.
Yeah, well, you won't know this, but I've signed up my 2 biggest customers ever from events like this. That spend, and I'm talking in the tens of millions with my company. And they didn't come through, I'm ashamed to say, online marketing. They didn't come through, any other medium. They came through. I was speaking at an event. They were in the audience. They signed up and became my biggest customer. And it's little things like that you never know who is in the room when you're in one of these retreats, who's sitting in the crowd of one of your talks or listening to one of your podcasts. And it can really change your life and your business. Yeah. So I'm going back. I'm looking, I left last year feeling very inspired about my business.
It's exactly the same for me 2 years ago.
It was infectious. It really was infectious. And I'm looking forward to working with you and Sarah and seeing all the different businesses that come this year.
Yeah, no, mate, it's going to be really, really good fun. So if anybody listening or watching wants more information around it, like, we don't promo on this pod, right? But it's like an experience, which if you want to come and meet us and get to know what we're about, I mean, we've spoke for 53 minutes, right, on business. And like I say, if you found it helpful, let us know in the comments, give the video a like, please subscribe. This is like 53 minutes. Imagine a week. Yeah. Of being, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting to know you, mate, a bit more and diving in and going into your brain, mate, and working out how you've done this. Because the questions that I've asked today aren't for the audience; they're for me. That's why I've just used this timer.
Well, I was going to say, I could have, I didn't even realize it's been 53 minutes because I love talking about. My problem is I burn out the people I'm speaking to because I love it so much, and the theory of business and scaling and money, and I can just talk and talk and talk because I want to get everything that into my brain and vice versa. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think that's what makes these retreats great, is because everywhere in my life, I'm like a unique person. I'm obsessed with business, but I'm like the only one in the room. In a place like Ibiza on the retreat, you have 20 people like us who are just obsessed. And
20 weirdos.
Fireworks. It's great.
I absolutely love it, mate. But no, I appreciate your time massively, mate. It's been great speaking to you. Looking forward to our trip as well. It's going to be really, really good fun. But Mark, for people that want to follow you, where's the best place to connect with you? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? What's the best place?
Mate, I'm everywhere. If you just type in Mark Wright to any social media platform, I'm verified on all. I'm normally the second one after the guy from Towie, which pains me to say awfully. But if you search for climb.online or Mark Wright on any platform, you'll find us all.
Oh, you're a legend. Thank you so much, mate. And look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks, mate.